Top 15 things about WWE's Undertaker that make no sense.
If you are brand new to our channel, we invite you to take a moment to subscribe. Just click on the lit red button as well as the gray bell. Why the bell? Well, it will let you know every time we post a new video.
15.
He's supposed to be a Deadman. One of the oddest things about The Undertaker is the fact that he is basically supposed to be a walking corpse of some sort. While wrestling, especially the sports entertainment version of wrestling, calls for one to suspend their disbelief, the gimmick behind The Undertaker causes you to scratch your head if you think about it for too long. So, this supposed zombie Deadman is competing against normal humans and they can somehow go toe-to-toe with him? Well, not very many went toe-to-toe with Taker, but you see what I mean. I'm not going to be one to question him, I'll leave that to you.
14.
He never used his supernatural powers during matches. Not only was Taker known for being undead, he would often display supernatural powers during his entrances, and when he wanted to taunt an upcoming opponent. Yet, it was rare to see any kind of supernatural trick during a match. The most we really got to see was his Deadman sit-up. It makes you wonder if any ideas surrounding the supernatural powers of The Undertaker were ever considered to happen more during matches, or if the creative team was hesitant to go too far in that direction. I mean, they did almost sacrifice Ryan Shamrock on network television.
13.
Brock Lesnar ended The Undertaker's WrestleMania streak. Yeah, WWE superfans will not like this entry. However, it made little sense for Brock Lesnar to have ended the 20-plus-year WrestleMania undefeated streak of The Undertaker. If they wanted to go in that direction, anyway, they could have made Roman Reigns' victory the first blemish on Taker's Mania record. It just feels like this moment could have gone a lot better than giving that nod to Brock Lesnar, who to this day is an expensive part-time asset. To give the WWE their credit, Lesnar is a major draw, and when he shows up on pay-per-view he seems to move the needle. 12. He never had an angle with the man they call Sting. For those who grew up as fans of World Championship Wrestling, Sting was the heart and soul of the promotion. If the financial situation of WCW had been handled better, Sting would have been the biggest star in North America, by far. Has anyone seen the reaction he received at Starrcade 1997? When Sting finally agreed to work with Vince in the WWE, the company decided not to run with a Sting vs. Undertaker program. Instead, they ran with Sting Triple H in what looked to be a way for WWE creative to give one last blow to the legacy of WCW. Definitely a wasted opportunity.
11.
He's not in the WWE Hall of Fame. The Undertaker should have been in the WWE Hall of Fame years ago. While he definitely will be a headline entry one day, it should have already happened with his limited schedule. Even the few critics that he has will admit that he played a huge role in the current success of the company. Taker will almost certainly become a Pro Wrestling Hall of Famer as well. He's had a career that can be compared to the legends of the world, and it shouldn't be too long until he gets his time to shine.
10.
He came back as a biker. At some point around the return of The Undertaker after an injury, someone from the WWE creative team thought it would be a great idea to have Undertaker return to television as a motorcycle-riding American badass. So Taker goes from being the undead to a motorcycle enthusiast overnight. That's definitely a bit bizarre. While he didn't have a bad run under this gimmick, it was nothing like the undead gimmick when he finally returned to the Undertaker roots. It's still a bit shocking that the WWE went forward with this idea.
9.
9. He has a keen fashion sense. Throughout the years, Undertaker has been known for his amazing costumes and ring attire that would put numerous cosplay experts to shame. If you ever have the time, scroll through the different outfits and swag Taker wore throughout the years. Perhaps Taker buying into the gimmick so well is what helped him get so popular. His attire helped set an extremely atmospheric mood anytime he walked into an arena, whether he was cloaked in a hood, cape, iconic hat, or one of the numerous other looks he had throughout the decades. How is Taker not the star of every sci-fi convention?
8.
8. He once was a hoop star. Before The Undertaker was the Lord of the Undead, he was actually a pretty decent basketball player. Mark Calaway played ball in high school and 1 year in college, before making the jump to professional wrestling. It's not surprising that he was pretty decent at basketball considering just how athletic and big the Taker is. Obviously, it didn't take him long to start making a rather big name for himself in the world of wrestling, validating his move from the hardwood to the ring.
7.
7. He once starred in a movie. Undertaker made his feature film debut in Suburban Commando, a movie which starred Hulk Hogan. The movie itself is widely considered to be quite awful, but it did give Taker some big screen experience. Taker would not appear on another non-wrestling featured television show until Poltergeist: The Legacy in 1999. Evidently, Taker doesn't enjoy appearing in these sort of roles, but it is likely he could make a good bit of money if he decided to dip his hand back into Hollywood. We can definitely see a sci-fi inspired flick starring The Undertaker.
6.
6. Who is this mean Mark? Before Taker ever stepped foot in a WWE ring, he was a mid-card talent for rival World Championship Wrestling. There are numerous stories of WCW not getting the most out of the talent they had from Steve Austin, Road Warriors, Ron Simmons, and numerous others. However, The Undertaker has to be one of their biggest mistakes. It's rare to have a big man with the talents of Taker under contract, and there's no excuse for letting him go to become a major draw for your biggest competitor. Mistake number 107 of the 1,650 which led to the demise of WCW.
5.
5. He crossed paths with Brangelina. Believe it or not, Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie once rented a home in Cedar Creek, Texas from The Undertaker, while they were filming a movie. The home was said to come with a gigantic custom bed, a huge master bedroom, larger than some average homes, and equipped with a wrestling ring which Taker used to train, and to go over matches with his WrestleMania opponents. It's not expected that these three individuals would have crossed paths, but they definitely did. Could you imagine some sort of supernatural thriller starring these three? Bring on the Druids.
4.
4. He dodged a career-ending gimmick. Undertaker made his WWE debut at the 1990 Survivor Series, yet the event almost told a completely different story for Mark Calaway. In the months leading up to the event, WWE displayed a giant egg during events, and hyped it up a great deal leading to Survivor Series. The original plans were for it to hatch an individual named the Eggman, who was going to be Mark Calaway. Thankfully, that idea was scrapped and traded for the horrific gimmick of Gobbledygooker. If Taker was the Eggman instead, he may have wasted all of his potential.
3.
3. He had a longer name once. At first, the WWE toyed with the name Kane the Undertaker, which was quickly dropped. Instead, The Undertaker was given a slew of nicknames to help create his image, from the Phenom to the Deadman to Prince of Darkness, among several others. Years later, WWE would give the Kane gimmick to Glenn Jacobs, who would be Undertaker's storyline half-brother. It all worked out in the end. This decision definitely worked in WWE's favor as it allowed them to have two prominent figures during the past 20 years.
2.
2. He was once managed by this character. It truly speaks to the talent of Mark Calloway that the Undertaker gimmick ended up being as successful as it is. WWE tried to do everything to make it not work. Someone in creative had the great idea to originally pair Taker up with a character that reminds people of that creepy guy who gets far too touchy with all the single ladies at a party. Brother Love was the first managerial choice over Paul Bearer, who would go on to become the longtime manager of the Deadman. Really, someone thought that Mr. I Love You was the best choice to manage an undead man?
1.
1. He used to roll with Jenna Jameson. According to Jenna Jameson's book, How to Make Love Like a Porn Star, she and The Undertaker began hanging around the same circles and became close friends. However, it would seem that a younger and less mature Taker would ruin that friendship. While Taker began by being shy around Jameson, and she was a big fan of his, one day Taker threatened to beat up her boyfriend at the time and kidnap her. Well, that was the last time Jameson decided to hang out with Taker. One has to wonder what the Phenom has to say about all of this.
Yeah.